Welcome to Jewish Boy Calls His Mother. I'm your host, Sadia, and this is my mother, Ima. Hey, Ima.
Hey, sweetness.
All right, so we teased a little bit last episode about the family as a function versus family as a pleasure. Now, we were saying that my brother Menachem was talking about that, and we could just expound on a little bit that back in the day, if you were, I would say, in the Wild West or in the shtetls, the more hands you had at the time, the more tasks you can do, the more necessities were able to get done, and you were able to, I guess, achieve those tasks and those chores a lot more efficiently. But because things nowadays become so automated, is a family more of a pleasure thing? Like, you enjoy the company of your family, that you enjoy the company of your spouse, and you enjoy the company of your children. That's something to really think about. What do you have to say about Ema?
Well, first of all, this is so appropriate for now because we just had, celebrated Thanksgiving yesterday, and where families traditionally get together. So the idea of, looking at basically the role of family in today's modern world, I think it's very apropos. But I remember when I was a kid, I had, in high school, whatever, I met kids, I had friends that lived way out in the county that were whose parents were farmers. And all the kids, when they found out that these guys were farmers, would joke around with them and say, "Hey, is it true that you guys have large families so that you can have more hired hands around the farm?" But
Yeah.
that became like a thing, and there were some farm kids that told us yes. But it's interesting though. It's like, but the question is, it's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg type thing? Did people years ago have a large functioning family purposely because they needed more hands, or the fact that they had a large functioning family helped them?
Well, there's also wasn't a lot of family planning back in the day. They didn't really have, various products and, medications that could be used to more or less control the, the timing and when you want to have children. It was kind of like a hope for the best kind of situation. So they wouldn't really have it that, like, per se. I mean, there's also the feeling that when somebody gets older, that they're going to have their children take care of them. Like, that's another function that I think is still reserved to today, where it's that when someone, God willing, has kids and he wants to raise them to be upright and whatnot, there's a part of them that's also saying, like, hey, if this child that's going to grow into an adult is going to eventually have to take care of me, and when I'm not going to be able to take care of myself.
I think you touched on something else too, in that in general, I think our society in general is more of a pleasure-seeking society than, say, societies in the past. I mean, many people years ago, you talk to people and they say, yeah, that many people years ago stuck with bad marriages, stuck with a lot of times abusive families, because they were just expected to to stay there. This was a commitment, and you were expected to live up to that commitment.
They were socially,
and just stay. Yeah, but now people are encouraged to leave abusive situations, no matter who it is, whether it's your parents, whether it's brothers and sisters, whether it's a spouse. If it's an abusive situation, people are encouraged to leave that situation, and rightfully so.
Well, just to work on two things you said. You said that nowadays generation is more pleasure seeking than any other generation before it. But if you look at the Greeks, back in ancient Greeks, I'm pretty sure they were really focused on pleasure seeking and obsessing over pleasure seeking, which is coming up to Hanukkah.
Well, the thing is, like the ancient Greeks and Romans, they were pleasure seeking, but they were, when it came to family, that the they were committed to family for the basically for the idea of procreation to preserve the society.
Well, I don't know. I'm not an archaeologist. I can't really give you a response to that. But I would think they would have, families that maybe, I don't know, that would have more polygamous relationships and a little more not lucid, but loose relationships. But it's just the idea of
The ancient Greeks and the Romans weren't exactly known for their, how can we say it, morality, fidelity.
Yeah. It's that, I think in today's society we have more options, and we're being taught in life now that it's okay to give yourself boundaries. I think people back in the day didn't have enough boundaries, and that they were told to let someone else enter their boundaries for the greater good.
So
and
true, yes.
We're being told now that the greater good would be if we do have boundaries, we do set limits, we do set these controlled environments to say, hey, this isn't right. I need to be treated with respect. I need to be treated,
absolutely,
with that feeling that I deserve something, that I'm worth something. If I don't feel like I'm worth it, then why should I continue living? And because we understand how important life is, and we're learning more and more about how precious life is and how sensitive life is, and we're trying to go in this way to really make sure that people feel that comfort, where they know they're being taken care of, and they know they're being listened to, and they know that they're important. Because suicide usually happens when someone feels like they have nothing at all left to live for. And we have to do suicide prevention, and the best way for suicide prevention is to talk about how much you do live for and how much you can live for.
I can't say anything better than the way you just expressed it.
Yeah, but then that goes on to what we're trying to say about, is family a function or family a pleasure? Are we having families nowadays because we want to have the company of somebody else to give ourselves a level of certainty, and to give us, a feeling of importance, and give us a sense of meaning, more than a level of functionality?
Well, in general, I think because, thank God, we live in a time of history where the vast majority of people are living to a fairly ripe old age. Whereas, years ago, let's face it, the majority of people up until World War II, about, half the population, until the development of antibiotics and immunization shots. I mean, that was probably half the population was dead before they reached the age of 20 years ago. But I think now that, people are, I think everyone has to agree that, Baruch Hashem, because of science and advancements, and not just medicine, but technology, the quality of our life is just so much better. So I think we can look at life now for more of a, I don't want to say like a hedonistic pleasure, but a normal person can look at their life as fulfilling, as happy, as as a contentful life, as opposed to, I remember in high school we read Thomas Hardy's book, The Mayor of Casterbridge, and the very last line of the book was that the heroine, as a result of everything, the heroine, who was a young woman, like I guess she's like in her early 20s, late teens, early 20s. The end of the book is that she realizes that life is really miserable, and that every now and then you're treated to some moments of happiness, but the general run of life is misery. and that she just decides that she has to accept it as such.
That's more nihilistic.
Yeah, well, that was this book was written in like I guess like I'm not quite sure, it was the 1800s, late 1800s, mid late 1800s, Thomas Harding. And that was how people felt about life. Yeah, life is a bitch, and I just accepted it that and go on.
Well, life, there's struggles in life, that's for sure, but the whole point is to enjoy the struggle. That, the fulfillment isn't obtaining that height of pleasure, it's that feeling of trying to obtain that pleasure. You're working towards a goal is something that gives people meaning. Once someone gets the goal, it's like climbing a mountain. You might have a fleeting moment of pleasure, of success, but you always need to be working towards a goal and working towards something. And people might mistake that as pain, but it's really a level of accomplishing pleasure.
It's a challenge. We call it a challenge. It's a challenge. Things like that. But you have to admit, I mean, when you look at the way people view life now, as opposed to the way that it was, basically epitomized by Thomas Hardy in his writings. I mean, it's like night and day. People in, thank God, the 21st century, the majority of people, at least in this part of the world and in this country, can look forward to a pretty pleasant life, thank God.
Well, nowadays,
as opposed to, hundreds of years ago.
I feel like nowadays people have a higher capability of being self-sustaining.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think back in the day, it's funny. I can't even. I'm. If you try to compare the past to the present and say that, I'm realizing now that like maybe some people were self-sustaining, some people were not. But what drives somebody to want to have a family? It's that better sense of fulfillment comparatively to, say the functionality of having more people at hand.
Well, also something too is that you hit on something as far as birth control is concerned. If you look at history, it's known, and it's a common history that up until almost around until about World War II, that information on, first of all, like you said, there weren't too many functional birth control, effective birth control methods, true, but birth control information in many states was not even permitted to be disseminated. And any doctor that would do this would be arrested.
Wow.
Now, I'm no fan of Margaret Sanger, because it came out years later that, Margaret Sanger was a eugenicist and was very anti-minority. That her whole idea about birth control was that
she was racist.
She felt that, she was racist, and she felt that blacks were inferior and that therefore that they should control their population. But one of the things that she wanted to do was she wanted to disseminate birth control information. And when she attempted to do that, they arrested her.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, a broken clock is right twice a day.
But you hit on something. There was something that we touched on last week that I was at your sister's in-laws' house yesterday for Thanksgiving. What was wonderful, absolutely wonderful. I had a great time. And one of the things that we discussed was we were talking about the fatalistic attitude that our grandparents and that our parents had as a result of the sufferings that they went through in Europe. And you brought up something very insightful, that why should they have had such a fatalistic attitude? I mean, look what they accomplished. And when to go through challenges like they did and to come out on top establish a life and to succeed was amazing. And instead of having a positive attitude about this, like, wow, this is wonderful. And, this is, we can do, if we put our mind to something, we can accomplish. They had this horrible fatalistic attitude of what's going to be is going to be, and you can't change it. So that came up at the Thanksgiving get together among the family and guests.
Oh, wow.
And we were and I mentioned what you said about, why did they have such a horrible attitude when they accomplished so much? And the conclusion was that they were afraid that their lives and growing up as younger children and people in Europe had been so precarious, and they had seen so much tragedy and so much sadness, that when they finally were able to have some happiness in life, they were afraid they were afraid of accepting it and of being too happy, for fear of the Eine horror, or for fear that it's not going to last.
Mm.
They were actually afraid to be too happy.
Interesting.
My mother said that when she was growing up, that that a lot of the parents were even afraid to be too affectionate to their children or to compliment them, for fear that their schlemazel, because they complimented their kid or because they were getting too close to their kid, their child was going to be taken away from them.
Wasn't that something that you said came also from like family members that survived the pogroms and the Holocaust?
Yeah, I was listening to a psychologist who had done a study on children that had been raised in violent areas of the world. And she said that, yeah, that they are afraid of getting too close in their interpersonal relationships.
Yeah, I guess because it's like, it's that they've seen so much and they're afraid of getting connected because of the feeling of the connection being taken away from them hurts too much, and they'd rather not do anything at all.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's why it's always very important to keep on trying, even if you fail. It's true. Yeah. It's like, because if not, you're only hurting yourself. You're only giving yourself a bad situation.
But the Lubavitcher Rebbe, what I thought was so wonderful was how he fought against that negative attitude.
Yeah.
He always emphasized being happy and being grateful, instead of worrying about the Eine horror or being too guarded.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, be happy. God wants you to be happy. Thank God for what you have and be happy with it. Yeah.
I struggle with that sometimes. Things are going well. I just have to be a grump. Such an issue.
But I think if you keep God in mind, that God gave this happiness to you, God gave this thing or this occasion because he wants you to be happy, then the proper attitude is use it as an occasion to pray to God to show your thankfulness. Oh, I guess like your Thanksgiving yesterday.
Oh yeah, it fits right in. Fits right in. You said you wanted to talk about some rhymes that weren't fit for children.
Yeah. Well, what happened was this past week, where I work in a preschool, we had some toy, one of these musical toys that was playing Alouette, and me and the other teacher just unconsciously started to sing Alouette. And I said, I wonder what the words mean. So I looked it up.
Oh God.
Lark, lark, jolly lark, I'll pull your feathers out. I'll pull your feathers out of your head. I'll pull your feathers out of your beak. I'll pull your feathers out of your neck. I'll pull your feathers out of your back.
Why? What's the source for that? What's the source of that?
I don't know. It said it was originally a French Canadian song, and that soldiers that were in France during World War I heard children singing it and liked it so much that they learned it and brought it home to their families when they came back from World War I.
Oh, interesting.
And I was also thinking of the Spanish song, that little innocent Spanish song, La Cucaracha.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny.
La cucaracha, ya no puede caminar, porque le falta, no tiene marihuana que fumar. So cockroach already cannot walk because he doesn't have marijuana to smoke.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's actually the cucaracha. Many of those, the lyrics aren't fully official. Like, there's no official lyrics, but that is one set of lyrics that are that were talked about.
And that's how we learned it in Spanish, because that was one of the things that irritated us in Spanish class. Our Spanish class sat in the hallway, And on the other side of the hall, of the foreign language hallway, was the French class. And the French class was always singing every day, singing some sort of pretty little French song. And we complained to the Spanish teacher. The French students are singing all these nice little songs. I said, what do we get? La cucaracha.
Oh, well. I never, we had was IFRIC class, and that was for 1 year in 12th grade high school. We had no other, we never got any language classes. But that's kind of why I go on Duolingo to help work on my language. But yeah. All right. We're out of time. Thank you so much, Ema. I really appreciate it.
That's life. Life is always out of time.
Whatever. It is what it is.
Yes. Talking about positive attitudes.
Positive attitude.
Yeah, positive the time.
Yeah, exactly. All right. I love you. Hope you have a wonderful
Love you, honey.
Shabbos.
You too have a great Shabbos. Love you. And happy Hanukkah.
Happy
Chag
Hanukkah to you
Sameach.
too. Yeah, Chag Sameach.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Jewish Boy Calls His Mother episode. Please like and subscribe our Facebook group at Jewish Boy Calls His Mother podcast, and check out our YouTube channel, Jewish Boy Calls His Mother. I know you'd like it, and my mother would appreciate it too.